The alarm screamed through the metal corridors of Battle Station Crucis 9. Taiwan woke up in his small cell, his heart racing. He knew that sound. Something bad had happened. Guards burst through the door. Their armor gleamed under the harsh lights. They were Valtrine soldiers, tall beings with purple scales and too many eyes. Taiwan had learned not to argue with them. "You? Come now," one guard said in broken human language. His translator device made strange clicking sounds. Taiwan stood up slowly. His back hurt from the thin sleeping mat. He had been a prisoner for 5 years now, ever since the Valtrine Empire conquered Earth. Before that, he was a doctor, the best trauma surgeon in Seoul. Now he was just another human slave. The guards pulled him through the station's corridors. Other human prisoners watched from their cells, their faces empty of hope. Taiwan wondered if today was the day they would kill him. The Valtrine did that sometimes for no reason at all, but they took him to the medical bay instead. The doors opened and Taiwan stopped breathing for a moment. Blood covered the floor. Dozens of bodies lay on tables, some moving, some not. The smell of burned flesh filled the air. A tall alien with 4 eyes turned to face him. This was High Physician Calthex, the station's chief medical officer. Taiwan had seen him before, always looking down at humans like they were insects. "Engine room explosion," Calthex said. His voice was cold. "You will treat the humans only. Do not touch any Valtrine. Do you understand?" Taiwan nodded. He looked around the room. Alien doctors rushed between patients, their equipment flashing with lights. But they looked lost, panicked. They were losing patients fast. Taiwan moved to the human section. 3 workers lay there, all injured badly. He checked them quickly. 2 would live if he worked fast. The 3rd was already gone. He closed that man's eyes and moved on. His hands moved on their own. It had been 5 years since he did real surgery, but his body remembered. Stop the bleeding first. Check for internal damage. Keep them breathing. The basics never changed, even in space. As he worked, Taiwan watched the alien doctors. They had amazing technology, machines that could see inside bodies, tools that sealed wounds with light, but they used everything wrong. They treated the patients with the loudest screams first. That was stupid. The quiet ones were often dying faster. They ran every test before making decisions. That wasted time. They followed their machines blindly, never using their eyes. A Valtrine officer on a nearby table started choking. Blue liquid came from his mouth. The alien doctors crowded around him, arguing about what to do. Their machines beeped and flashed. Taiwan knew those signs. Different body, same problem. Fluid in the chest cavity. Pressure building up. The officer would die in minutes. He should stay quiet. He was ordered to treat humans only. If the officer died, it was not his problem. Taiwan had learned to keep his head down and survive. But his hands had already finished with the 2nd human patient, and that Valtrine officer was someone's family, someone's friend. Taiwan had sworn an oath once long ago. "First, do no harm." "Move aside," Taiwan said, pushing through the alien doctors. Calthex grabbed his arm. The High Physician's grip was like iron. "You dare? You were ordered—" "He has fluid in his chest cavity. Pressure is killing him. You need to drain it now." Taiwan pointed at the officer's chest where the scales had turned a darker color. Calthex looked at his machines. "The scanner shows no— Your scanner is wrong. Look at him. Look with your eyes." Taiwan pulled free and grabbed a surgical tool from the nearby tray. It was not quite right, but it would work. The officer's body was different from a human's. Taiwan did not know exactly where to cut. But physics was physics. Pressure was pressure. He studied the body's shape, feeling along the chest. There. A soft spot between the scales. He made a small cut. Blue fluid sprayed out. The officer gasped and started breathing again. Taiwan inserted a small tube to keep draining the fluid. His hands worked steadily, like he had done this 1,000 times before. The medical bay went silent. Every alien doctor stared at him. Calthex's 4 eyes were wide with shock. The officer's color improved. His breathing steadied. He would live. Taiwan stepped back. His hands were shaking now. He had just broken a direct order. They would probably kill him for this, but the officer was alive. That had to count for something. Calthex slowly approached him. The High Physician's face was impossible to read. "How did you know?" The signs were clear. Body position, skin color change, breathing pattern. Your machines could not see it, but eyes can. Taewon met the alien's gaze. All bodies follow the same rules. Blood needs to flow. Lungs need space. Pressure needs release. Calthek said nothing. He turned to his staff and began barking orders. The other patients needed help. The crisis was not over. Taewon returned to his human patients. He finished treating them both. They would survive with rest and time. Simple injuries, really, once you knew what to look for. Hours passed. The medical bay slowly became quieter. Patients stabilized. The dead were taken away. Taewon sat in a corner, exhausted. He waited for the guards to come and drag him to execution. Instead, a different figure entered the bay. Commander Velshara, the station's military leader. She was tall and covered in dark armor like an insect shell. Everyone feared her. She walked straight to Taewon. He stood up, trying not to show fear. "The officer you saved is my second in command," she said. Her voice was sharp and clear. "He is valuable to me." Taewon waited. "Was this good or bad? You will remain here in the medical bay. You will assist High Physician Calthex. If you refuse, you will be executed. If you fail, you will be executed. Do you understand?" "I understand," Taewon said quietly. Velshara turned and left without another word. Taewon stood there, his mind racing. He was not going back to his cell. He was staying in the medical bay. He was not sure if this was better or worse. Calthex approached him again. The High Physician looked tired now. His purple scales had lost some of their shine. "Tomorrow you will begin regular duties," Calthex said. "You will have a workspace. You will have access to supplies. You will treat whoever I assign to you." Taewon nodded. Calthex hesitated, then added, "Your method today. It was effective. Perhaps we can learn from each other." The alien walked away before Taewon could respond. A guard showed Taewon to a small room near the medical bay. It had a real bed, a sink, a door that locked from the inside. It was still a prison, but a better one. Taewon sat on the bed. His whole body ached. His mind replayed the day's events. He had saved lives today, human and alien. He had broken the rules and survived. But something else bothered him. Commander Velshara's words echoed in his head. He was valuable now. Useful. That meant they would not kill him easily. But it also meant they would never let him go. Taewon lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. He was no longer just another prisoner. He had become something far more complicated. Something that might help his fellow humans or might doom them all. Only time would tell which. 3 months had passed since the explosion. Taewon's life had changed in ways he never expected. Every morning he woke in his small room and walked to the medical bay. He treated patients, both human and alien. He studied their strange bodies and learned their biology. High Physician Calthex watched him constantly. Sometimes the alien asked questions. Sometimes he just stared with his 4 purple eyes. Taewon could never tell what the Valtrine was thinking. One day a young alien entered the medical bay. She had smooth skin that glowed with soft blue patterns. Her species lived in water part of their lives. Her name was Nixera, and she was a medical apprentice. "I am assigned to you," Nixera said. Her human language was much better than most aliens. "I must learn your methods." Taewon looked at Calthex. The High Physician nodded. "She will observe you. She will record everything you do. We need to understand how you work." Taewon understood. They wanted to copy his skills so they would not need him anymore. Once they learned everything, he would go back to being worthless. Back to the cells or worse, but he had no choice. "Fine, stay close and do not get in my way." The first patient that day was a Valtrine worker with stomach pain. Nixera pulled out her scanner immediately. The device hummed and showed complex readings on a floating screen. "The scanner shows minor inflammation," Nixera said. "Standard protocol is anti-inflammatory medication and rest." Taewon ignored the scanner. He looked at the patient's face. The worker was sweating, but not much. His scales were slightly darker on the left side. His breathing was shallow and quick. "Where exactly does it hurt?" Taewon asked. The worker pointed to his lower right side. Taewon pressed gently around the area. The worker flinched hard when Taewon touched one specific spot. "This is not inflammation. This is his appendix or whatever you people have that is similar. It needs to come out now or it will burst." Nixera checked her scanner again. "But the device does not show—" "Your device is wrong." Taewon turned to the worker. "You have been in pain for 2 days, yes? It started in the center and moved to the side?" You cannot eat without feeling sick? The worker's eyes went wide. Yes, exactly, yes. How did you know? Taiwan called for Calthex. The high physician came over and ran his own scans. He frowned at the results, then examined the patient himself. Finally, he nodded. Prepare surgery, Calthex ordered. The human is correct. After the surgery, Nixra followed Taiwan like a shadow. How did you know? The scanner showed nothing serious. I looked at him. I listened to him. I touched him. Your machines are good, but they are not perfect. Bodies tell stories if you know how to read them. We are taught to trust our instruments, Nixra said slowly. They are more accurate than biological senses. Maybe. But your instruments only see what they are designed to see. I see everything, then decide what matters. Taiwan cleaned his hands in the sink. On Earth, we had no choice. Our technology was limited. We had to learn to observe. It became an art. Nixra's glowing patterns flickered thoughtfully. She opened her mouth to ask another question, but an alarm interrupted them. Red lights flashed throughout the station. A transport ship had just arrived. The crew was sick, very sick. Commander Velshara's voice came over the speakers, cold and clear. Quarantine protocols in effect. All medical staff report immediately. Taiwan ran to the docking bay with Calthex and Nixra. The transport ship sat behind thick glass walls. Inside, they could see the crew. Dozens of aliens from different species all lying on the floor. Some were not moving at all. Velshara stood watching with her officers. They reported illness 3 days ago. We ordered them to return immediately. By the time they arrived, half the crew was unconscious. Calthex studied the scene through the glass. Unknown pathogen. Standard protocol requires we destroy the ship and everything in it. That is 70 crew members, Velshara said quietly. And a ship worth more than this entire station. Taiwan pressed closer to the glass. He watched the sick crew carefully. Their symptoms were visible even from here. Skin discoloration, fluid leaking from their mouths, swollen joints, the way they moved slow and stiff. This is not a virus or bacteria, Taiwan said. Everyone turned to look at him. What? Calthex's voice was sharp. Look at the pattern. It affects their joints first. Then their skin. Then their organs. This is a parasite, something small living inside them, growing and spreading. Calthex shook his head. Impossible. Our scans would detect any parasite. Maybe it is too small for your scans. Or maybe it hides inside their cells. On Earth, we had parasites that did this. They were hard to find, but the symptoms were clear. Velshara stepped forward. If you are wrong, you waste time while they die. If you are right, what then? If I am right, we can treat them. Parasites need specific conditions to live. Change those conditions and they die. The hosts survive. Calthex looked at Velshara. The commander looked at the dying crew. Time was running out. You have 6 hours, Velshara said. If the situation does not improve, I will destroy the ship. Taiwan nodded. 6 hours. He could work with that. Maybe. They brought one of the sick crew members into an isolated medical room. Taiwan wore a protective suit that felt too tight. Nixra assisted him, her hands shaking slightly. Taiwan took samples. Blood, skin, fluid from the joints. He studied them under the most powerful microscope available. At first he saw nothing. Then after an hour of searching, he found it. Tiny organisms, almost invisible. They lived inside the blood cells, feeding and reproducing. That was why the scanners missed them. They were hidden inside other cells. I was right, Taiwan said. Now we need to kill these things without killing the hosts. He worked with Calthex and Nixra to develop a treatment. Humans used high heat and specific chemicals to kill parasites. But these aliens had different biology. What worked on Earth might kill them. They combined human knowledge with Valtrine technology, a drug cocktail that would target the parasite's metabolism, adjusted body temperature to make the host's bodies hostile to the organisms, oxygen-rich fluid to flush out the dying parasites. 4 hours had passed. They had one treatment protocol. One chance. They tested it on the patient in isolation first. Taiwan watched the monitors carefully. The patient's vital signs dipped, then stabilized. The swelling in his joints began to reduce. His skin color improved. After 1 hour, the patient opened his eyes. He was weak but alive. More importantly, he was getting better. It works, Nixra whispered. Her glowing patterns pulsed with excitement. They rushed to treat the rest of the crew. All of them. Working nonstop for the next 10 hours. Taiwan's hands were steady, but his mind was exhausted. Calthex worked beside him without complaint. Nixra learned quickly, following instructions perfectly. By the end, 68 crew members survived. Only 2 had died before they could be treated. Commander Velshara stood in the medical bay watching the recovering patients. "You saved my ship," she said to Taiwan, "and 68 lives." Taiwan was too tired to respond properly. He just nodded. Velshara turned to Calthex. "I want a full report on his methods. Send it to Fleet Command. Other stations need to know about this." After the commander left, Nixra sat down next to Taiwan. "I understand now. You do not just follow rules. You think about why the rules exist. You adapt them." "Yes," Taiwan said. "Medicine is not just about tools and knowledge. It is about observation, logic, and creativity. Your people have forgotten that." Nixra's patterns dimmed thoughtfully. "Perhaps we never learned it in the first place. We conquered other species and took their technology. We never struggled like you did." Taiwan looked at her with surprise. This young alien was questioning her own empire. That was dangerous thinking. But before he could respond, a human prisoner entered the medical bay. She was young, maybe 19 years old. Guards pushed her forward roughly. "This one is your new assistant," a guard said. "Commander's orders." The girl looked terrified. Her eyes found Taiwan's face, and he saw desperate hope there. She was trying not to cry. "What is your name?" Taiwan asked gently. "Daun," she whispered. "I was a medical student before everything." Taiwan felt something shift inside him. He was no longer alone. He had saved lives today, human and alien. He had taught someone who wanted to learn. And now he had someone from his own world to help him. For the first time in 5 years, Taiwan felt something strange and fragile. He felt hope. The medical bay had become busier. Word had spread through the fleet about the human doctor who could diagnose things their machines could not see. Ships began requesting Taiwan specifically. Calthex tried to refuse most requests, but Commander Velshara overruled him each time. Daeun proved to be a fast learner. She translated between Taiwan and alien patients who spoke no human language. She learned their anatomy by reading every file she could access. At night, she and Taiwan would discuss cases in their small workroom, speaking Korean for the first time in years. "Do you think they will let us go home someday?" Daeun asked one evening. She was cleaning surgical tools, her hands moving automatically. Taiwan looked up from his notes. Home. Earth. He had tried not to think about it for 5 years. "I do not know. Maybe. If we become valuable enough." "Is that why you helped them? To buy our freedom?" "No." Taiwan put down his tablet. "I help them because I am a doctor. That is who I am. I cannot watch someone die and do nothing." Daeun smiled sadly. "My professor used to say the same thing. I wonder if he is still alive." Before Taiwan could respond, alarms blared through the station, but these were different from the usual emergency alerts. These alarms meant battle. Velshara's voice came through the speakers. "All stations to combat readiness. Enemy contact in Sector 7. Taiwan and Daeun prepared the medical bay for casualties. They had drills for this. Extra beds rolled out. Supplies organized by priority." Nixra joined them, her glowing patterns flickering with nervous energy. Hours passed. The station shook several times from weapons fire. Then the wounded began arriving. Most injuries were manageable. Burns from energy weapons. Broken bones from explosions. Taiwan and his team worked steadily through the casualties. But then they brought in someone different. She was young, covered in dark insectoid armor like Velshara's species. Her helmet was cracked and blue blood leaked from her head. The soldiers who carried her were panicking. "This is Captain Velkira," one soldier said. "The commander's daughter. She was piloting a fighter when—" Taiwan did not need to hear more. He could see the problem. Severe head trauma, the kind that killed you slowly if it did not kill you fast. Calthex rushed over. He scanned the captain immediately. His 4 eyes widened, then his whole body seemed to deflate. "Neural pathway damage, severe, nothing can be done." "What do you mean, nothing?" The soldier grabbed Calthex's arm. "You are the high physician. The brain damage is too extensive. She will fade over the next few days." "I'm sorry." "Make her comfortable." Calthex pulled away and moved to the next patient. Taiwan stared at the young captain. She was unconscious, but her body was fighting. Her vitals were weak but stable. He had seen injuries like this before. On Earth, on humans. The doctors would say the same thing then, too. Nothing to be done, but sometimes, very rarely, those patients survived. When the doctors tried something new, Something risky. Commander Velshara arrived minutes later. She pushed through everyone to reach her daughter's side. For the first time, Taewon saw emotion on the commander's face. Fear. Raw and terrible fear. Calthek says she will die. Velshara said quietly. She was not asking. She was stating a fact she could not accept. He says nothing can be done, Taewon corrected carefully. Velshara turned to look at him. Her eyes were sharp despite her fear. But you think differently. I think your physicians have given up too quickly. They see damaged pathways and stop thinking. But brains are adaptable. They can heal if given the right help. Calthex appeared beside them. Do not give false hope, human. You know nothing about Valtrine neurology. You are right. I know nothing about Valtrine brains specifically. But I know about brains in general. I know about healing. And I know that your approach is wrong. Explain, Velshara commanded. Taewon pulled up the scan results on a screen. Your medicine focuses on the damage. You see these broken pathways and declare them unfixable, but you ignore everything else. Look here and here. These areas are intact, healthy. They can be stimulated to form new connections, to bypass the damage. Neural pathways do not regenerate in our species, Calthek said firmly. Have you ever tried to help them regenerate, or do you just accept that they cannot? Taewon met the High Physician's eyes. On Earth, we thought the same thing for centuries. Then we discovered ways to stimulate regrowth. Small ways, but real. Velshara looked at her daughter. The young captain's breathing was shallow. What would you do? A combination approach. Targeted electrical stimulation to wake up dormant neural areas. Chemical compounds to reduce inflammation and promote cellular repair. Controlled stress to force the brain to adapt. It would take weeks. Maybe months. And it might not work. It will not work, Calthek said. You will give her false hope and waste precious time. Time doing what? Taewon shot back. You said nothing can be done. So what does she lose by trying? Silence fell over the medical bay. Everyone was watching now. Calthex looked angry. Velshara looked torn between hope and despair. Finally, the commander spoke. Do it, whatever you need you will have. But if she suffers because of this, I will kill you myself. Taewon nodded. Understood. For the next 3 days, Taewon barely slept. He studied Valtrine neurology with Heian, a human scientist who worked in the research labs. She had been brought to help him understand the alien brain structure. Heian was thin and tired-looking, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been a prisoner for 6 years. I never thought I would use my xenobiology degree to save an alien commander's daughter, she said with dark humor. Life is strange that way, Taewon replied. Together, they developed a treatment protocol. It was risky. It combined human medical theory with Valtrine technology in ways that had never been tried. Nixra helped them prepare the equipment, asking questions constantly. Calthex watched from a distance. He did not help, but he did not interfere either. Taewon could feel the High Physician's doubt like a physical weight. On the 4th day, they were ready. The entire medical staff gathered to watch. This was either going to work or fail spectacularly. There was no middle ground. Taewon stood over Captain Valkyra. She was still unconscious. Her vital signs had weakened. They were running out of time. Begin, Taewon said. They started the electrical stimulation, small pulses carefully targeted. The captain's body twitched. Her brain activity changed on the monitors. Not much, but something. They added the chemical compounds, injected directly into her brain through microscopic channels. Taewon's hands were steady, but his heart was racing. Hours passed. The captain's condition remained stable but unchanged. Velshara stood in the corner watching without blinking. Calthex periodically checked the monitors and shook his head. Then, on the 8th hour, something changed. The brain activity increased. Just a little, but it was real. The captain's eyes moved under her eyelids. It is working, Duan whispered. By the 12th hour, the captain opened her eyes. She looked confused and weak, but she was conscious. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Do not try to talk yet, Taewon said gently. Your brain needs time to reconnect. But you are alive. You are healing, Velshara pushed forward. She took her daughter's hand. For a moment, the fierce commander was just a mother, and her relief was almost painful to watch. Calthex approached Taewon slowly. The High Physician looked at the monitors, then at the recovering captain, then at Taewon. I did not think it possible, Calthex said quietly. I was wrong. It was the first time Taiwan had heard the alien admit error. It felt like a victory, though a small one. Over the next weeks, Captain Valkyra recovered slowly but steadily. Her speech returned. Her movement improved. She would need months of therapy, but she would live. She would fully recover. Valkyra did not thank Taiwan directly. That was not her way. But she assigned guards to protect him at all times. She gave him unrestricted access to the medical databases. She moved Dayun and Haiyan to better quarters. One night, a human prisoner came to visit Taiwan. His name was Ji-hun, a former soldier. He was strong and scarred, with eyes that had seen too much violence. "We need to talk," Ji-hun said quietly. "Somewhere private." They went to a storage room where the surveillance was broken. Ji-hun checked twice to make sure they were alone. "You have made yourself important to them," Ji-hun said. "That is good. But it also makes you a target." "A target for what?" "There are factions in the Empire who hate what you represent. A human who is better than them. Who proves they are not superior. They have tried to kill you once already. We stopped it." Taiwan felt cold. "We? Who are you?" "Human resistance. We have a network throughout the station. Small but organized. We have been watching over you because you are valuable." Ji-hun paused. "But now we need your help with something else." "What?" "There is a plague spreading in the outer territories. It is killing everyone, Valtrine and conquered species alike. The Empire is hiding it, but it is getting worse, and we think it might be our chance to strike back." Taiwan stared at Ji-hun. The Resistance wanted to weaponize a plague. They wanted him to help kill millions. Or perhaps they wanted him to choose between his oath as a doctor and his loyalty to his enslaved people. Either way, his life had just become far more complicated. The plague arrived at Crucis 9 2 weeks later. At first, it was just one patient, a transport pilot who had traveled through the outer territories. He came to the medical bay complaining of headaches and joint pain. Taiwan examined him carefully. The symptoms seemed minor at first, but something bothered him. The way the pilot moved, the slight confusion in his speech, the tremor in his hands. "How long have you felt this way?" Taiwan asked. 3 days, maybe 4. "It is hard to remember." The pilot rubbed his forehead. "My memory has been strange lately." Taiwan's blood went cold. Neural symptoms, memory problems. This was what Ji-hun had warned about. The plague. He immediately ordered quarantine. The pilot was isolated in a sealed medical room. Taiwan called Calthex and Commander Velshara. Within hours, the station was on high alert. But it was already too late. The pilot had been on the station for 2 days before showing symptoms. He had interacted with dozens of crew members. By the end of the first week, 50 people were sick. By the end of the second week, 200. The quarantine protocols failed. The plague spread through the air, through touch, through surfaces. It infected every species on the station. Valtrine, humans, and all the others. No one was immune. Taiwan worked day and night. The medical bay overflowed with patients. They set up emergency wards in cargo bays. But people kept dying. The plague attacked the nervous system, shutting down brain function slowly. Patients would lose their memory, then their motor control, then their ability to breathe. Ji-hun found Taiwan late one night. The doctor was studying tissue samples, trying to understand the disease. His eyes were red from exhaustion. "The resistance leaders want to meet you," Ji-hun said quietly. "I am busy trying to save lives. This is about saving lives. Human lives. Please." Taiwan followed Ji-hun to a hidden room deep in the station's maintenance level. 3 other humans waited there. They looked hard and desperate. One of them, an older woman, spoke first. "Dr. Taiwan, we know about your work. You have saved many alien lives, but now we need you to let them die." "What?" "This plague could destroy the Valtrine Empire. If we do nothing, if we let it spread, they will fall, and we will be free." The woman's eyes were fierce. "They enslaved us. They destroyed Earth. They deserve this." Taiwan shook his head. "You are asking me to commit genocide. We are asking you to let nature take its course, to stop helping our enemies. Is that so wrong?" "Yes." Taiwan's voice was firm. "I am a doctor. I save lives. All lives. I will not become a killer. no matter how justified you think it is. The resistance members argued with him. They showed him images of Earth's conquest, cities burning, millions dead. They reminded him of the friends and family he had lost. They appealed to his anger, his grief, his desire for revenge. But Taewon refused. If I let hate guide my medicine, I become no better than them. I will fight this plague, with or without your approval. He turned to leave, but Ji-hun grabbed his arm. Wait. If you will not help us destroy them, will you at least study the plague? Learn everything about it? That information could be useful later. Taewon looked at the former soldier. Ji-hun's eyes were calculating. He was planning something, but Taewon needed to understand the plague anyway to fight it. Fine, I will study it thoroughly. But I will also try to cure it. Back in the medical bay, Taewon worked with Hae-in to analyze the plague. The scientist had been brought in full-time to help with the crisis. Her expertise in xenobiology was crucial. This is not a natural disease, Hae-in said after days of research. She showed Taewon a complex molecular structure on her screen. This was engineered, created deliberately. By who? I found markers in the genetic code. They match records of a civilization the Valtrine conquered 3,000 years ago. The Korvathi. They were scientists and engineers. The Valtrine wiped them out completely. Hae-in pulled up more data. I think this was their final weapon, a plague designed to target conquerors, to lie dormant, then activate when disturbed. Taewon stared at the screen. An ancient weapon. Revenge from beyond the grave. The Korvathi had created a plague to kill anyone who dominated others. It was poetic and horrible. There is something else, Hae-in continued. She looked uncomfortable. I tested human blood against the plague. We have partial immunity. What? How? Humans have incredible genetic diversity. Our immune systems evolved through constant exposure to diseases on Earth. The plague was designed for genetically uniform species like the Valtrine. But humans are too variable. Some of us get sick, but most fight it off naturally. Taewon understood immediately. Human blood contained antibodies that could fight the plague. If they could extract and synthesize those antibodies, they could create a treatment. But that would require using humans as living medicine factories. Commander Velshara and High Physician Calthex arrived at the lab within the hour. They had been monitoring his research. We heard about the human immunity, Velshara said without preamble. We need to harvest antibodies from your people. Harvest? Taewon's voice was cold. Extract. Collect. Whatever word makes you comfortable. Velshara stepped closer. This plague will kill everyone on this station. Then it will spread to the fleet. Millions will die. Your people can save us, Calthex added. We will compensate the human donors. Better food, better quarters. Whatever you ask. No, Taewon said flatly. Velshara's face hardened. This is not a request, Doctor. Then it is slavery. You will force humans to give their blood to save you. The same way you forced us into labor. The same way you destroyed our world. Taewon met her eyes. I have a different proposal. What proposal? Calthex asked carefully. I will go to the human prisoners myself. I will explain the situation honestly. I will ask for volunteers. If enough agree, we will create the treatment. But in exchange, you will improve conditions for all human prisoners immediately. Better food, better quarters, access to education, and you will promise freedom for every volunteer once the crisis ends. Velshara and Calthex looked at each other. They were not used to negotiating with prisoners, but they were also desperate. Agreed, Velshara said finally. But if you fail to get enough volunteers, we will take what we need by force. Taewon nodded. It was the best deal he could get. He gathered Ji-hun, Da-un, and several other trusted humans. Together, they went to the prisoner quarters. Hundreds of humans lived in cramped cells on the lower decks. They emerged slowly when Taewon called them together. They looked thin and tired. Some were angry. Most were just empty. Taiwan explained everything: the plague, the immunity, what was needed, what was offered in return. He did not lie. He did not sugarcoat. He gave them the truth and asked them to decide. Silence fell over the crowd. Then someone shouted, "Why should we help them? Let them die." Others agreed. Angry voices rose. Taiwan understood their hate. He felt it too sometimes, late at night when memories of Earth overwhelmed him. But Ji-hun stepped forward. The former soldier raised his hand for silence. Slowly, the crowd quieted. "Listen to me," Ji-hun said. "I hate the Valtrine as much as any of you. I lost my family, my home, everything. But Dr. Taiwan is giving us something we have not had in years: power, leverage. They need us. For the first time, we are not worthless slaves. We are valuable." He looked around at the faces. "If we help them, we get better conditions. We get freedom for some of us. We prove that we are not just things they can discard. We show them that we matter. And maybe, just maybe, we start changing how they see us. All of us. Every human in their empire." The crowd muttered. Ji-hun continued. "Or we can let them die. And the hardliners who survive will blame us. They will kill every human in revenge. Either way, we suffer. But one path gives us a future. The other gives us nothing." Slowly, hands began to rise. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. Enough volunteers to save the station. Taiwan felt something break inside his chest. These people who had every reason to choose revenge chose hope instead. They chose to be better than their oppressors. The next weeks were a blur. Taiwan and his team extracted antibodies from human volunteers. They synthesized treatments. They administered them to the sick. The process was slow, but it worked. Patient by patient, the plague was beaten back. The death toll was high. Over 300 crew members died before the treatment became widely available. But thousands more survived. The station was saved. Commander Velshara kept her word. Human quarters were improved. Volunteers received their freedom. It was not enough, not nearly enough, but it was a start. As the crisis ended, a message arrived from the imperial capital. Taiwan was summoned to appear before the Grand Imperator himself. The supreme ruler wanted to meet the human who had saved his empire. Da-Yun found Taiwan staring at the summons. "Are you afraid?" she asked quietly. He nodded, terrified. This could be an honor or an execution. With the Valtrine, you never know until it is too late. He looked at the young woman who had become like a daughter to him. "But we have proven something important. We have shown them that humans are not just slaves. We are necessary, and that changes everything." The imperial capital, Valth Prime, was unlike anything Taiwan had ever seen. The entire planet seemed to be made of crystal and metal, shining under a purple sun. Buildings reached kilometers into the sky, connected by bridges of light. Ships filled the air like insects. Taiwan arrived in chains, though they were ceremonial ones made of silver. Commander Velshara had insisted on accompanying him. She said it was for his protection, but Taiwan suspected she did not trust the imperial court with her valuable human doctor. They took him to the Throne of Ages, a massive chamber at the heart of the imperial palace. Thousands of aliens filled the room, representing every species in the empire. They all watched as Taiwan walked down the long aisle toward the throne. The Grand Imperator sat on a throne made of living crystal. Zolvath was ancient, that much was clear. His body was crystalline, transparent, and glowing with inner light. He had no face as humans understood it, just shifting patterns of light and color. But Taiwan could feel intelligence there. Old, powerful, calculating intelligence. Taiwan stopped before the throne. He did not kneel. He had decided on the journey that he would not show submission. If they killed him for it, so be it. But he would stand as an equal. The court gasped. Several officials moved forward angrily. But Zolvath raised one crystalline hand and everyone froze. The Imperator's voice was strange, like music made of mathematics. It came from everywhere and nowhere. "You are the human called Taiwan, the one who saved millions of my subjects from the ancient plague. I am a doctor. I saved lives. That is what I do. You refuse to kneel before me. Do you know the punishment for such disrespect?" I assume death. Taewon kept his voice steady. But I have been a slave for 5 years. I have lost everything. Death holds no fear for me anymore. Zolvath's patterns shifted, creating something that might have been amusement. Interesting. Most beings beg for mercy. You offer indifference, not indifference. Dignity. I will not pretend to be less than I am, not even before you. The Imperator leaned forward slightly. Tell me, human, why did you save my people? You could have let the plague kill us. Your species would have been freed. Taewon had expected this question. Because I am a doctor. I took an oath to heal, not to kill. If I broke that oath for revenge, I would become no better than the empire that enslaved us. Noble words. But I think there is more. You saw an opportunity. You negotiated. You improved conditions for your people. You are not just a healer. You are a strategist. Taewon said nothing. The Imperator was right, of course. He had used the crisis to gain leverage. But that did not make his medical ethics false. Zolvath continued. I will tell you a truth, human. We did not conquer your world for resources. We conquered it because you were becoming dangerous, the court murmured. Velshara stepped forward. My Imperator, perhaps this information should remain silence. Zolvath's voice carried absolute authority. This human has earned the truth. The Imperator turned his attention back to Taewon. Your species advances too quickly. Too creatively. We have conquered thousands of civilizations over 10,000 years. Most stagnate under our rule. They accept their place. But humans? Humans adapt. Humans innovate. Humans resist. So you enslaved us to stop our progress, yes, and it has failed spectacularly. Zolvath's pattern shifted again, showing something like frustration. We scattered your people across the empire as slaves, but wherever they go, they cause change. Human ideas spread like infection, merit over birth, innovation over tradition, equality over hierarchy. Your presence is destabilizing everything we built. Taewon felt a chill. The Imperator was admitting that humans were a threat to the entire empire. That made them valuable, but also incredibly dangerous to keep alive. Which brings me to why you are here, Zolvath said. I have a proposal for you. Become the first non-Valtrine imperial physician, the highest medical authority in the empire, second only to me. You will have wealth, status, power. Your people will be elevated alongside you. The court exploded in protest. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages. Security forces moved forward. But again, Zolvath silenced them all with a gesture. Taewon thought carefully before responding. This was a test, a trap. The Imperator was offering him the galaxy, but at what cost? What happens to the other human slaves? Taewon asked. They remain slaves, but their conditions will improve. They will be treated better because of your elevated status. So I become the exception that proves the rule. The one human allowed to rise while millions remain in chains. My success becomes the excuse to continue their oppression. Zolvath said nothing, but his patterns pulsed with something like approval. The human understood. I refuse, Taewon said clearly. The court fell silent. Velshara made a small sound of distress. Even the Imperator seemed surprised. You refuse? Zolvath's voice was dangerous now. You understand what I offer? And what refusing means? I understand perfectly. You offer me a golden cage. You want to use me as proof that your system works, that the worthy can rise regardless of species. But it is a lie. My success would not free my people. It would justify their continued slavery. Taewon stepped closer to the throne. Guards moved to stop him, but Zolvath waved them back. I have a counter-proposal, Taewon said. Give one sector to human autonomy. Let us govern ourselves. If we fail, you can execute every human in the empire. But if we succeed, you expand the policy to other sectors. Eventually, all humans become full citizens with equal rights. The court erupted again. This time, the shouting was louder, angrier. Several officials demanded Taewon be executed immediately for such audacity. But Zolvath raised his hand once more, and silence fell. You ask for autonomy, the Imperator said slowly. For your people to prove themselves. But what you really ask for is the right to fail or succeed on your own terms. Yes. Because that is what we were denied when you conquered Earth. You feared our potential, so you tried to crush it. But you cannot crush human adaptability. You cannot crush our will to be free. The harder you press, the more we resist. Taewon's voice grew stronger. Your empire stagnates because you value control over growth. You conquered us because we represented change. But change is not your enemy. Stagnation is. He gestured to the assembled court. Look at your officials. They fear humans not because we are violent or dangerous, but because we prove that merit matters more than birth, that creativity matters more than tradition. You built an empire on hierarchy and control, but evolution does not care about your hierarchy. It rewards adaptation. Taewan took a breath. Give us our chance. Let us show you what humans can build when we are free. And if we fail, at least we failed on our own terms. But I think we will surprise you. I think we will thrive. And I think our success will force you to evolve your entire empire. The throne room was silent. Every eye was on Zolvath. The Imperator sat motionless for what felt like hours. His crystalline body pulsed with complex patterns as he calculated outcomes and probabilities. Finally, he spoke. You are either the bravest being I have met in 3 centuries or the most foolish. Perhaps both. Probably both, Taewan agreed. Zolvath's patterns shifted into something that might have been laughter. Very well, human. I accept your proposal. The Sagittarius sector will become autonomous human territory. You will have 10 years to prove yourselves. If you succeed, we expand the program. If you fail or if you rebel, every human in the Empire dies. All of them. Do you accept these terms? Taewan felt the weight of millions of lives settling on his shoulders. 10 years. Success or extinction. It was a terrible bargain, but it was better than slavery. I accept. Then it is done. The Imperator rose from his throne for the first time. The court bowed low, but Taewan remained standing. Zolvath noticed and made that laughing pattern again. You still refuse to bow. I bow to no one. Not anymore. Good. The Imperator moved closer until he was directly in front of Taewan. His crystalline form towered over the human. I will tell you one final truth. I hope you succeed. This empire has become stagnant and brittle. Perhaps your chaos is exactly what we need to survive, or perhaps you will destroy us. Either way, it will be interesting. Zolvath turned to address the court. Let it be known throughout the empire. The humans have earned their chance. The Sagittarius sector is now under human authority. They will govern themselves as they see fit, and we will watch to see if they are worthy of equality. The court was silent. No one dared protest directly to the Imperator's face. But Taewan could feel their hatred. He had just become the most important and most hated human in the galaxy. Commander Velshara escorted him from the throne room. Once they were outside, she grabbed his arm. You are insane. You refused power and demanded revolution instead. Do you understand how many enemies you just made? I understand. But I also understand that real change requires risk. Your daughter is alive because I took a risk. The station survived the plague because I took a risk. Now I'm taking the biggest risk of all. Velshara studied his face. You really believe you can succeed? I have to believe it, because the alternative is unthinkable. The commander released his arm and stepped back. Then she did something unexpected. She saluted him. Good luck, Dr. Taewan. You will need it. Taewan returned to Crucis 9 3 days later. Word had already spread about his audience with the Imperator. The alarms screamed through the communication center like dying animals. Taeyoung Kim pressed her hands against her ears, but the sound cut through everything. Red lights flashed across every screen in the room. Outside the reinforced windows, the night sky of Thelis Prime burned with fire. Another explosion lit up the darkness. Taeyoung watched as pieces of metal fell through the atmosphere, trailing smoke and flame. Those were ships. Valoran defense ships. Her people's ships. Now they were just burning debris. She had worked for the Valoran Collective for 15 years. 15 peaceful years of helping different species talk to each other, solving problems with words instead of weapons. She never thought she would see war. The Collective didn't fight wars. They talked. They negotiated. They found peaceful solutions. But the Krell Dominion didn't care about peace. The door burst open. Ambassador Velthar stumbled in, his usually calm face twisted with fear. The elderly Thalasian looked like he had aged 10 years in the past hour. His hands shook as he gripped the doorframe. How many ships do we have left? He asked. His voice cracked on the last word. Taeyoung looked at her screen. The tactical display showed the space above their planet. Only one green dot remained among dozens of red enemy markers. One defense cruiser. The Bright Hope. She is trying to hold them back, but she didn't need to finish. They both watched as the green dot flickered and died. The Bright Hope was gone. Every defense ship was gone. Nothing stood between 3 billion Thalasians and the Krell warships above. Velthar sank into a chair. For a long moment he just stared at nothing. Then he looked up at Tae-Yang. How long until they start bombing? Our sensors show they are moving bombardment ships into position. Maybe 18 hours, maybe less, 18 hours. 18 hours until plasma fire rained down from the sky and turned cities into glass. 18 hours until 3 billion people died. The door opened again. This time it was Dayun Park, young and always full of energy. But not now. Now she looked hollow. The evacuation ships can't get here in time. The collective sent everything they have, but the nearest transport fleet is 4 days away. We have 18 hours. Silence filled the room. What could anyone say? They all knew what this meant. Velthar stood slowly. Send the distress call anyway. Let the collective know what happened here. Let them know we tried. Tae-Yang nodded and turned to her console. She began typing the emergency broadcast. Her fingers moved automatically, following the protocols she had learned years ago. Protocols she never thought she would actually use. Then she saw something strange. A communication frequency she didn't recognize. It sat at the bottom of the emergency contact list, almost hidden. The label read, Terran Emergency Response Coordination Terran. That meant Earth, humanity. Tae-Yang had met a few humans over the years. They were pleasant enough, if a bit strange. Earth had joined the collective 47 years ago, but they mostly kept to themselves. They had maybe 30 or 40 ships in their entire fleet, small patrol vessels, nothing impressive. Everyone said humanity was still learning how to be a spacefaring species. Ambassador, she said slowly, there is a Terran emergency frequency in our system. Should I include it in the broadcast? Velthar looked up. Why not? Send it everywhere. Maybe someone will hear. Maybe someone will remember us. Tae-Yang added the Terran frequency to the broadcast list. She knew it wouldn't help. Earth was over 40 light-years away. Even if they wanted to help, even if they sent every ship they had, those ships would arrive weeks too late. But she sent the message anyway. This is Thelis Prime, Velaran Collective. We are under attack by Krell Dominion forces. Our orbital defenses are destroyed. Krell bombardment fleet is in position. 3 billion civilians have no evacuation route. If anyone can hear this message, please help us. We have 18 hours remaining. Her voice broke on the last sentence. Please, someone help us. She pressed the send button. The message went out in all directions, traveling at the speed of light to every collective world, every allied station, every emergency frequency, including the Terran one. Then there was nothing to do but wait. Hours passed. The three of them sat in the communications center, watching the countdown timer tick down. 16 hours, 15 hours, 14 hours outside the cities were chaos. People ran through the streets. Some tried to find shelter in underground bunkers, but there weren't enough bunkers for everyone. Most people just held their families close and waited for the end. Diane watched the crowd through the window. I grew up down there, she said quietly. On that street, third building from the corner. My parents still live there. They said they won't leave. This is their home? Tae-Yang wanted to say something comforting, but there was nothing to say. She had sent messages to her own family on Earth, but those messages would take days to arrive. By the time her parents read them, she would already be dead. The collective sent replies to their distress call. Kind words, sympathetic words, useless words. Everyone was sorry. Everyone wished they could help. No one could. 10 hours left. 9 hours. 8 hours. Velthar stood and walked to the window. I have been governor of this planet for 32 years. I have seen babies born and elders pass away. I have helped build schools and hospitals. I have watched this world grow and prosper. He turned to face them, and now I will watch it die. I will die with my people. Tae-Yang felt tears on her face. Ambassador, I am so sorry. If there was anything we could do, you did everything you could. You sent the message. That is all anyone could ask. 7 hours. 6 hours. Tae-Yang thought about Earth. She thought about her childhood there, running through green fields under a yellow sun. She thought about her decision to leave, to join the collective and explore the galaxy. It had seemed so exciting then. An adventure. Now she would give anything to see those green fields again. 5 hours. The console beeped. Tae-Yang almost ignored it. Probably another sympathetic message from some collective world too far away to matter, but something made her look. Her heart stopped. It was the Terran frequency. Someone had answered on the Terran frequency. She hit the playback button with shaking hands. A voice filled the room. Male, human. Speaking with a strong accent but perfect collective standard. Thalos Prime. This is Rear Admiral Jae-Sung Lee, commanding Terran Defense Force Task Group 7. We received your distress call. Humanity stands with the Valoran Collective. Relief is inbound. Repeat, relief is inbound. Hold your position. Estimated time of arrival, 9 hours, 20 minutes. The message ended. Taeyang, Dayun, and Veltar stared at each other in shock. 9 hours. Dayun whispered, "That is impossible. Earth is 40 light years away." Veltar shook his head. "It must be a mistake. Or perhaps a small human patrol happened to be nearby. Either way," he paused. "Even if they arrive in time, what can they do? Humanity has perhaps 36 ships. The Krell have 12 heavy cruisers and a dreadnought in orbit. Human weapons are no match for that." But Taeyang felt something she hadn't felt in hours. Hope. Probably foolish hope, probably false hope, but hope nonetheless. Someone had answered. Someone was coming. Her people were coming.